welcome to Paperback Flicks.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another Paperback Flicks. I'm Ruth Craddock, and that person down there is the lovely Ray Gordon, and we have a guest over here, Rebecca Road, author extraordinaire. Hi, nice to have you.
Thanks. I'm excited. This will be fun.
Okay, so first off, what do you want to like? Do you want to tell us kind of your author journey, like what got you into writing? What made you decide to kind of just do it, and how has the process gone for you so far?
Yeah, so Ruth's been a little bit of a part of that journey, which is kind of fun. And so I'm excited. We'll have a fun chat. So I've been publishing for 13 years now. And before that, I was writing for a couple years, but I was writing inspirational nonfiction. I was writing like doing freelance journalism stuff, pretty much exploring, figuring out what I love to do. And then as soon as I started writing novels, I was just hooked and I couldn't write anything else and I can't stop. So I'm a little addicted. But I pretty much, as a kid, loved to read, loved to write, loved to illustrate my own books. And then went to college and majored in something completely different. And I just never considered the fact that you can actually publish a novel. It was just for like the smart people. Never really thought it would be me, never really thought that I was capable of that. Until probably I think we'd been married for like 9 years or something like that before I started writing. And I had three kids, and I think that it just got to the point where I just needed something for me. And I found myself in writing. And if you get it, you get it. Like if a lot of moms, I think, kind of experience that need to express and create. And so when I started doing journalism and the inspirational stuff, it was mostly about mom stuff and just kind of expressing parts of my journey. And then it was like, you know what, if I'm going to write, if I'm going to publish, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I started in science fiction and moved to fantasy. And I'm also publishing sweet contemporary romance and romantic comedies. And I will probably keep going until I die because I just love it. It's so much fun.
Sound good. Yeah, if you find something you love, why not keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So, what was your first book that you published?
So my first book was an inspirational nonfiction book for moms called How to Have Peace When You're Falling to Pieces. And it was basically just the things that I had discovered as a mom and the book that I wish that I had. When I went to the library, just looking for something that was funny, something that would be lighthearted, but also real advice, like not just foofy, I'm a psychologist, I know everything. You know what I mean? I wanted something by a mom who was in the trenches, and I couldn't find it. And so I decided to write it. And that one came out from a small press publisher, which was quite an experience in itself and taught me so much about publishing. And after that, I decided to start indie publishing. My next book was actually science fiction. It was called Numbers Game. It was a dystopian book. This was back when like Divergent and Hunger Games were kind of big. And so that series actually did really well. And I turned down a traditional publishing contract for that one and just did it under my own company. And I think it did a little better that way.
Yeah. Well, cool. I actually got to be part of the critiquing process of the first number of games book, and I remember the process and it was fun. I actually finally listened to your audiobook. I got your little free book combo on
Oh,
Audible
cool.
recently. 'Cause I'm an
Nice.
Audible person now. And I listened to the first book all the way through. I bought the book when you did your book launch, but I didn't physically read it at the time. Johnny did. Um, but I was like, I need to go ahead and like read it all the way through when it's finished for him. And it was really fun to listen to when I liked your narrator. I thought she was good.
Mm.
Well done book. And then it was just fun seeing all the little things like, oh, I remember when she was writing that. I remember when that was a little different. So I'm excited to listen to the other books. Now that I'm an audiobook person, I'm reading more.
That's awesome.
That was nice. Yeah.
I love it. I bet you have a really unique perspective because you remember all the different ugly drafts before they got polished and pretty.
Ugly. They weren't ugly. They were never ugly. Yeah,
That's nice of you to
it
think.
works. It reads really well as a whole book, so it's really fun to like. Because the way we would do it was like 2,000 words at a time or something that we critique. Is that right? Do you remember?
I think so. Maybe
Something like that.
2,500. I
Yeah, like
can't
two
remember.
or three pages or so that we would email to each other. We'd read it before critique group, and then we'd meet together and like we'd read our notes aloud. And one, I was horrible at remembering to read things before like the last minute. I was always reading things last minute because I'm just awful. And then but it was because of that I only got to read everybody's scenes like in little bits and pieces. So it was I don't know, it was a fun experience getting to hear the whole book all
Mm.
together and see how it morphs from the little caterpillar into a butterfly. What would you say is your favorite book you have written? Your absolute favorite?
Um, Without a doubt, Tides of Mutiny
Okay.
is also the hardest one. But the main character is, if I were a pirate, it would be me. And she's just so spunky and so brave. I mean, it would be the person I wish I could be. I wish I could be as brave and awesome as she is. But she can wield an axe, she can fight people, she can be two people. She's kind of putting up a front in order to save her own life. She's got to pretend to be a boy on this ship, and yet the son of her mortal enemy who wants her dead gets on the ship and asks her to help him win back the kingdom that she hates. And so it's a really interesting, like getting to be two people, kind of a tension and conflict. And I just thought that that was really fun, throwing in fun twists and things like that. I really enjoyed that one.
I got to read a little bit of that in its baby form too. So that one was
Mm.
fun. Very cool. So awesome. Ray, did you have any questions for Rebecca?
Yeah, so you mentioned that you did several different genres. Was there a reason behind that? Were you kind of testing waters, or was there something that you preferred over something else?
That's a good question. I've always loved dystopian science fiction. I grew up on, Star Trek and Star Wars, and I watched that with my dad all the time. I had a huge crush on Wesley Crusher, the doctor's son on Star Trek. But I kind of moved toward fantasy because dystopian is hard to write, not only to make it unique, but there requires a bit of insight in terms of things that are happening in the world. And sometimes after a while, that can kind of wear on you, especially when you're seeing things happen that you wrote about in your book. And you're like, oh, guys, no, 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 let's not go that direction.
Wasn't a good thing. I
So
wasn't a map for how you should
right?
do things.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's kind of disconcerting for sure. I just needed a break from that. And I think that during that time, it was like 2020 and there was a lot of stuff going on in the world. I just needed something a little lighter, something more fun and not as quite as dark and heavy. So that's why I kind of switched to fantasy. That's about when my Tides of Mutiny came out. And then after that, I noticed that a lot of my readers were temporarily kind of switching to contemporary romance and rom-com because they kind of had the same feeling. They were like, we just need something fluffy. Like, just give me something fluffy that doesn't matter, life and death stakes. And I was like, I bet I can write that. So I just kind of switched for a while. I wasn't intending to stay there, but it turned out to be so much fun. And they're a little bit shorter. I can write them more quickly.
Hmm.
So I just decided to write, a romance once in a while and continue with fantasy once in a while. The contemporary romance has kind of taken over my publishing schedule, not because I love it more, just because it's faster, it's
Yeah.
easier, and readers tend to kind of clamor for romance right now in all of its forms. So it's kind of doing the lion's share of bringing in the income right now. So I'll probably stick with the romance, but it doesn't mean that the entirety of my heart is there. I'm still writing a fantasy right now, and there's just something that really stretches me about fantasy. So I guess the answer to that question is all the different genres speak to a different part of me. And so I kind of rotate around them and they are all fulfilling. But if I chose one in particular, I think that I would be unfulfilled in other areas, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, we watch different types of movies, we read different types of books. Why would we just write one type of thing? Yeah, if that's like your strong point is one thing over another. I've been told I'm best when I do fantasy, not as much when I do realism, which I'm not sure if I should take that as an insult or compliment. But, there are things that like we tend to gravitate more towards, but I read all sorts of different stuff. And I think ultimately I will end up writing different things. I have a billion different ideas for different things whenever I get to them. And I think it's just whatever ends up taking over your mind and your soul at that time. That's what gets the attention. But
Yeah.
Ray is an aspiring author.
Oh, cool.
He's, working on something. So would
It's
you,
changed
you have,
it's changed forms. It's been a little amorphous for a while.
do you have any like advice, Rebecca, for budding young authors like our buddy Ray here?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, what genre are you writing in?
I think it has become romance. That wasn't where it started.
Hmm.
But it is real world. It's not fantasy or whatever else. So
Okay,
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like Ruth was saying, there's certain things that we kind of gravitate toward, and I think that's because we all have different strengths and weaknesses, right? So if your story starts someplace and ends up somewhere else, then I think it's okay to follow that. I think it's okay to explore that, figure out what it is that you love and what it is that you feel kind of captures your heart, and that's probably where you belong, regardless of where the story started. Most of my books in the beginning were discovery written, and it takes a lot longer to discovery write. So discovery writing versus outlining is, as you know, you're just kind of following the story and just discovering the story as you go along and the characters and things like that. A lot of the professional writers that I know started out there, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think that that's kind of where the magic is. That's where the excitement is of writing. Eventually, as you start to kind of get to know yourself as a writer and get in the flow of things, you'll start to do a little bit more outlining, and that's probably a good idea because it does save time over the long run. You can kind of feel the structure out a little bit more, and especially if you were to do like traditional publishing, they tend to, if you establish a relationship with an editor or publisher, they want to know what you're writing before it's written and to know whether they want to publish it or not, which means that you really have to have an idea of what the story is before you write it. And that's a hard shift. That was a hard shift for me, but one that had to happen if I was going to publish traditionally, which I did. I didn't tell you that part. So I published my science fiction independently under my own company, and then I switched to traditional publishing again. I got an agent, I got a big publisher for my fantasy, and that was a really good learning experience for me. But if I had done that at the beginning, I would have felt really overwhelmed because there's a lot. It's a lot to learn. So I think just start where you're comfortable, explore what it is you love, really dive in and just have fun with it. And once you feel like you have something, that's when you really start to put on your business hat and start deciding, okay, I want to, shop this around to agents or editors or whatever. But don't let that paralyze you. Just go with the flow and have fun and enjoy that first stage because it only gets harder from there, sadly.
Yeah.
that's funny. I actually started with an outline. I started with an idea that became an outline, and I hated it. By the time I started fleshing it out, I'm like, I don't like my characters. I don't like where this has gone. It's way darker than I intended. And then
Oh,
I started like rewriting pieces, and then I ultimately just was like, so let's take that as like a basic framework and throw everything like redid it all in a way that I actually like what I'm putting out there now. So, but that's funny. So you said that when you're working with a traditional publisher, they tend to like the outline, the tell them what you're going to tell them before you tell them kind of thing.
yeah.
Um, did that feel like did it hinder you? Did you feel like it hindered your creativity, or were you able to still produce exactly what you were hoping to produce?
Um, it's still a struggle. I wouldn't even say that I've overcome that struggle. I do like some freedom with my science fiction and fantasy. My romances, I can outline to the T and follow them, and it's fine because I'm not doing world building. I'm not establishing a magic system. There's just a lot of things, not as many twists and turns in a rom-com, you know? And so I can outline those and pump them out in a month. It's not a big deal. But with a fantasy book, there are, even in an outline, missing chunks that I don't know what's going to happen there. I know that this happens, but I don't know how to bridge the two until I've written it. And so it still is a struggle that I'm going through that my agent just despises. That I can't just say, oh, this happens and then this happens. And yeah, it'll be great when I write it. It's usually like, well, I know cool things are going to happen. Just trust me, it'll be great. It just doesn't work with publishers. They're not going to buy that book until you kind of have a better idea. So, yeah, it's still a struggle, but luckily, the first story, as you're establishing those relationships with the editor and with the publisher, they will want your book to be done before your agent gives it to them, which is nice. It's once they trust you that they start being like, okay, what else you got? And you're like, well, it'll be awesome. Just hang in there while I write it. And that part is a little bit difficult for me. Not for everybody, but for me.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as since you've done the self-publishing and traditional publishing, do you have any kind of tips for indie authors about, you've written the book, now what? Like any kind of words of advice for people starting out there and doing it by themselves?
Hmm. So yeah, and I just taught a big class on this at a conference, and honestly, I wish it was a 2-hour class. It was a 50-minute class, and it was like covering the basics because there is a lot for new writers to learn, right? If they've got a manuscript and they're like, I don't know what to do with this, usually the first thing they think of is, well, I'll just send it to publishers and see if they want it. But there are so many different variances even within that that you really do need to just do your research and figure out exactly what you want to do so you know which path to take because there are multiple paths. So even within traditional publishing, you have to decide, do I want to try and get an agent and try and get a big publisher, or do I want to go small press publishing, which I don't need an agent for, but I also probably won't get the big advance. I probably won't make a lot of money on that. I might not even end up in bookstores with that route. So you just have to know which one it is that you're getting. Um, and then there's indie publishing, self-publishing, which is basically, guess what? I am the publisher. I'm going to become the publisher, which means I have to learn to be a publisher. And that is very daunting in the beginning. And you really do have to learn a lot of things and you have to relearn a lot of things because it's changing so often. When I first started indie publishing, you remember, Ruth, things were very different back then. Very, very different. It's incredible how much the market and the industry has changed since then, and I'm constantly relearning things. We've got Book Talk now. We've got, Instagram. We've got a huge emphasis on social media that wasn't there before. Publishers, even if you go through traditional publishing, they're expecting a lot of marketing from you, and that used to not be the case. It
Yeah.
used to be like, well, I'll just write the book and then you guys market the book. That's not how it is anymore. Right now, it's like they're like, basically, how are you going to market it before we even take you on? So it's like
Yeah.
it's a challenge. Either way, it doesn't matter which route you take, you still are doing a lot of marketing. I have like a weird thing going on with the window, don't I?
Boy.
Funny. Maybe I'll move over here. Is that better? Kind of.
What's
Is that better?
something that you know now that you wish you knew when you were first publishing, when you started out?
Oh, um, it's never too late to try something new. A lot of the people who have succeeded in the industry are the ones who jumped on something first and then said, hey guys, this is working. And by the time you get there, sometimes it's too late for it to be working anymore. And so it does feel kind of like one of those kids' soccer games where everyone just kind of bunches around the ball and kind of follow it around the entire game, and nobody can really ever do anything with the ball. That's kind of how it feels. With how many people are publishing daily, it really is kind of a fight to be seen. But there are certain fundamentals that kind of are just universally important for authors. And I wish that I had really focused on those earlier when I was considering doing that, but just kind of put it off like that sounds like a lot of work. I don't know if I want to do that. I wish that I had done those things earlier. So those would include my newsletter. Author newsletters are so incredibly important because in traditional publishing, you'll have perhaps the same publisher, perhaps not. So you have different books that look different and different audiences that these books are reaching. But if you release a new book, they have to start all over again because essentially they're putting the book out there and hoping people will see it, right? But with an author newsletter, if you can create an audience who love your books, then you just send out an email that's essentially free and your audience is always there. You can always reach them. There's nobody charging you to do that. There's nobody in your way saying, no, sorry, you can't talk to your readers. And so that direct line of communication to the readers who are asking to learn more about you and your books is essential. That's where your audience is. And I think that's where the power of indie publishing in particular comes in. And I didn't really understand that. I thought it was about bookstores. A lot of new writers think that if they put their book in bookstores, that it'll just sell and they'll make $1 million. And they'll have these book signings where there will be lines out the door. I have been in book signings where the line was out the door, but it's because Brandon Sanderson was sitting next to me because he's an S last name and I'm an R. So that's just my curse living here. But yeah, just don't be afraid to try things and see what works. And if it doesn't work, then drop it. And if it works, then keep it. It's okay to fail. Just be fearless in trying out new things, asking questions from authors, reading books, learning, and don't kind of dip your toe in and see if it kind of works. You really do need to just jump in with both feet and just say, I'm going to make this work no matter what it takes. It's kind of a mindset shift, but it works.
Okay. As far as newsletters go, that's something I've always had a real problem with. I'm like, what do I write? I feel like I can't write the same thing over and over again. I think that's true for a lot of authors. A lot of authors struggle with, like, yeah, I read a whole book and I could write something to my friend, but how do I write something interesting and unique every like couple weeks or month for my readers? Like, where do you come up with your ideas for those kind of things?
So, one of the things I love about the author community, especially where I live, is that we all lift each other up. And so I do a lot of author swaps. So what that means is if I don't have a book coming out for 6 months, I'm going to look for other books that are releasing in those 6 months, and I'm going to promote other authors' books in my newsletter. And then when the time comes for my book to come out, they'll do the same thing for me. So we're not giving each other's email addresses out. We're just saying, will you please promote my book for me? It does work as long as it's within your audience. So, for instance, I write sweet romance, so I have a pen name. I've got my own audience for that. If I were to say, hey guys, you should read this super steamy rated R book, it's not going to go well, right? So we talk a lot about, sweet books, clean books, whatever term you want to use, non-spicy or whatever. Books that I've read recently, we talk a lot about, movies that we watched recently that were like that. We've talked about closed door. We've talked about the term closed door. Like, what does closed door mean? Does it mean that things are happening, but you just don't see them, or that nothing's happening? And so, like, defining terms, we've had a lot of, book giveaway contests. I ask for a lot of interaction from my audience. I feel like they don't want to hear from someone who just wants to sell them books all the time, but I want them to know that I want to understand them and what it is they're looking for and what it is that they love. And that's when I think the most important things that a newsletter can do, because we really do need to understand our audience inside and out. And this is a great way to do it. There's one time when I couldn't decide what book to write next, but I did have some covers lined up. So I said, okay, A, B, or C, which book should I write next? And then they just chose the book that they wanted next. And then that was the next series that I wrote. And they loved that. They were so excited about that. The cover ended up being a little different, but they didn't care. They were just excited that they got to have a say. Sometimes I talk about character names. They help me decide my character names. I have a friend who actually has her audience choose what she's going to wear for conferences. So she laid out clothes and was like, "Hey guys, what should I wear?" And they just absolutely loved that. They just want to be a part of the process, a part of our lives, and get to know us better as people and not just a nameless book cover that is being shoved in their face all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really interesting about being author now. I remember like you see a lot of the movies in the 80s and 90s, they show authors, they just like write in their little cabin and they send their manuscript off and that's it. And they have no other interaction with anybody. Social media wasn't a thing. Internet wasn't even really a thing at the time. So you could be kind of all reclusive. And that's what I was hoping for because I'm not a people person.
Yeah.
I do fine when I'm in small groups, but I'm not the kind of person that wants to stand in front of a whole crowd of people and talk. And I'm not big at drawing a lot of attention to myself. So I was hoping for the little cabin in the woods with my house full of cats and just sit there and just write my books, pet my cat maniacally as I write evil things, and then send it off to somebody. And like they would take care of all like the persona and the image and stuff, and I wouldn't have to fumble through it. But that's not what it's like now. And in some ways, that is kind of cool that you get to actually know the author a little
Yeah.
bit. You get to know a little bit about their process and what they like and what their inspirations are, which is something you couldn't really do back then. You didn't really get to know the author at all. You just kind of had to sit there and just assume things about them, unless they, were telling you stuff in their books or something. But usually it was just a little author bio and it was about as basic as you can get. So I guess it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing if you like a lot of attention and you're good with people. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's definitely a growing experience for us who are not social animals. So I don't know, it's interesting how different writing is now. And especially since, like, when we were first doing critique group and everything, like, indie authors were still really looked down upon. And I guess there's still some people that do, but, like, that was before, like, the whole KDP thing became huge. And it became more of like a legitimate way to publish books. And I think it's funny that like the music industry and movie industry has like broken out of the mold over the years and created their own indie subgenre and had their own indie like thing going on, but books didn't do it for the longest time. And I don't know if it's just because publishers wanted just to control and be the only ones in charge of making sure the books got out, or if it just because of the technology wasn't there. But it seemed like once it did, once the technology was there, was nothing the big publishers could do to stop us. And then it was like, okay, now you can do it, but this isn't going to be easy and it's going to be a lot of work. But man, there are so many indie authors now, so much like variety of stuff out there than there was before. And it's kind of cool. It's also kind of daunting because you're like, I can't possibly read all of this, but I'll try. Um, but it's also kind of cool, like how many new voices are being able to actually publish now that probably wouldn't have gotten to otherwise. So, anyways.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is a very exciting time to be in publishing. I know that there are a lot of people who mourn the old days when it was easier. You could just put a book up on Amazon and it would just sell, and we got organic visibility. We didn't have to pay for ads to be seen. Back then, in some ways, it was easier, but I also think that the community that we've created is something special. And I think that every author who becomes an author is also a reader. So we're also reading each other's stuff. We're buying, we're helping support each other, and it brings unique opportunities. Like, I don't know if you remember when the script writers in Hollywood were having a strike for a little while. They were looking at authors as potential scriptwriters there for a little while to kind of fill in that gap. And I know I have an author friend who was approached and asked to write a screenplay of her own book because they were considering it for Hallmark. And I don't think that anything really ever came of it, but It was something that would never have happened otherwise, but suddenly this indie author could have become a, Hallmark movie writer simply because she was given the opportunity that she would have never had 10 years ago. So it's just cool to see these unique opportunities like on TikTok. Authors are becoming big on Book Talk. Who would have thought that this little platform that makes movies and they're just talking about books that they love or doing page flips or whatever. And they're shooting to number one in all the bookstores just because of some movies that they made. 10 years ago would never have been like that. So it's kind of exciting. It's kind of cool. Maybe a little uncomfortable for us introverts, but it's still kind of cool, right? Living in this day and age with the technology that we have, I think it's exciting and fun.
Cool. Ray, was there anything you wanted to ask Rebecca?
Well, I wanted to ask, is there anything that you've either just released or that you're about to release that you kind of want to put out there for people to know about? I know we talked over some of your stuff, and you can just list out all your stuff again if you want to. That doesn't hurt our feelings. But anything particular that you want people to either be looking forward to or to kind of jump on right now?
Um, so right now, I'm working on another contemporary romance. So I released a four-book series that's seasonal. So there's a fall book, winter, spring, and summer. And each one has the name of the in the title. So it's like just can't fall for the enemy is the fall one. Um, I can show you the covers. I've got them right here. So this is the
Yeah.
fall one. It's probably backwards for you guys. Just say snow to the ex-fiance. So those ones are fun. These are fun rom-coms. My readers really enjoyed those ones. And then I started a Travel Sisters series. So it's about four sisters who are required in order to get an inheritance from their grandfather after he passes away, which is a big inheritance, but the requirement is that they have to travel the world together and they hate each other. So they don't actually enjoy being together. But one by one, they start falling in love at these different stops and kind of coming together and healing their wounds. And so book three comes out this fall, which I'm excited about. So the first one was Meet Me in Paris. And the second one was Marry Me in Rome, and the third one will be Visit Me in Vienna. So I'm working on that one right now, which I am really excited about because when I was a teenage girl, I was obsessed with horses. And if you know anything about Vienna, they have these really famous horses and dressage stuff. And anyway, so I'm excited to put that in the book because that's a little piece of me. One of the reasons that I enjoy writing romance. So that's probably the next one that I have coming out.
All right, awesome. And what's the pen name?
Sasha Hart,
Josh.
Hart.
So why did you choose to do a pen name for the romances and not use the same name as you did for like your dystopian?
Yeah, so I used my same name for the inspirational nonfiction, for the science fiction, and for the fantasy, and I learned that people were getting confused as to what my brand was. Didn't really know what to expect when they were buying a book from me, so I didn't want them to be confused. So I decided to just experiment with a pen name for only my contemporary romance so that they weren't stumbling across my science fiction and being like, what is this? This isn't what is happening because they're very different genres and they have very different expectations. And that's worked out well. I think that was a good choice.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that is one of the things you have to worry about. If you're going to use the same name, writing multiple genres might be a little confusing. I think some people get away with it, like Stephen King writes all sorts of different stuff, but he gets away with it somehow. I'm not sure why. Maybe because there's a little bit of creepy and like the darker weird in almost everything he writes. Maybe it's like a little bit of an underbelly of darkness. I don't know. But I've
Yeah,
only
I
read
don't
like so
know.
many of his books,
He's
but
famous enough. He can do whatever he wants.
yeah, I guess you get famous enough, you can be like, psh. Anyways, so yeah. Anything else you want to ask, Ray?
Well, I just kind of want to know if there's anything else that you want to make sure that is told on here. We don't leave anything out.
Oh, well, okay. So here's one more piece of advice for you, Ray. Since you're starting out on this journey, I would say you'll hear a lot of negativity. So it's kind of difficult in a lot of ways, publishing, regardless of how you decide. There's really not one easy route. in publishing, they're both hard. It's you're either putting a lot of time and investment into it, or you're putting a lot of money into it, or it takes, a big chunk of yourself to do this, and it doesn't pay great. And it's kind of demoralizing at times, but regardless of the negativity that you hear from other authors who might be complaining about the good old days, the way it was before, or whatever it is, I really do think that anyone can succeed if they're willing to just jump in all the way in. Like, just don't even worry about what other people are doing with the rejection letters they're getting, the poor sales that they're getting. Don't look sideways at other people. Just look at yourself and how you can be better and how you can improve with each book and be the best that you can be. Worry about you marketing better, worry about putting out a better product. Just do the best that you can be. I promise you, you will go crazy otherwise, but it really is important to just focus on you and your career and building that and just be patient. Think of the long game, because I don't really know anybody who experienced success with their first book. It really does take a little while to build an audience, and that's fine. That's the way that restaurants are, that's the way that stores are. I don't know many directors who immediately their first movie just was their biggest, blockbuster. So it's the same in writing, and that's fine. It's completely normal. Be easy on yourself. It's okay to start slow and small and do what you can do and just build on that. That's my advice.
That's great. Yeah. I know for me, like Ruth and I have talked about it, that I just like I was one of those people that always had the ideas in my head, and sometimes I would say them to people, and I never like committed to like actually fleshing it out, actually thinking out. And I have like there's two different ideas that I like have that are like cool, and they are world bending and whatever. World bending, world building, and maybe bending. I don't
That
know.
too. Well, then,
I like that. It's a good
But
word.
but and like I have like really specific ideas, and so I write them down or whatever. But I never had kind of the commitment, you know. But this one was just a story that was just in my head that I just like I was like I just like you said in the beginning, just that like feeling that I needed to create. I needed to just tell it. Even if no one else ever cares about it, I needed to tell it.
Yeah.
And I think I tried. So someone else told me that this was something that they did wrong. I don't remember if it was recorded on here or if we were just talking, but I was going along telling the story, outlining the story, and I think I was making it like what I thought people wanted to read more than what my story was, my creation was.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Oh
Like
yeah,
I kind of
totally.
thought, oh, people don't want this sissy stuff, like or what I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. But like I said, I ended up just not liking what I had put out, and so I pulled it. But is that something that you've ever run into or been tempted to do the thing that seemed popular as opposed to the thing that was yours?
All the time. Yeah. There is a lot of pressure, especially in indie publishing, to kind of chase the trends. And you can do that in indie publishing because we can publish on our timeline. Traditional publishing, they're going to make you wait a year or two before the book even comes out. You can't really do that. And they kind of want more unique ideas that are based in something familiar. With indie, you can experiment and just kind of do what you think readers want. We can be much faster about giving them what they want. The only thing is, it may not necessarily be what we want to write, right? So that is a constant tug of war all the time. Like, do I write this one that I really want to write, or do I write this one that readers are wanting more? And it's hard because it really just depends on individual circumstances and finances and time and or whatever. But that's one of the things that I love about being able to write in different genres. I feel like it's the best of both worlds. I can give people what they want, but on my timeline, and I can decide what I want to write next, and that's fine. It is a little harder to market that way, though, sadly. It's harder to carry two pen names and keep them going than it would be one. So that's one unfortunate thing. But yeah, all the time. It's a thing.
okay, well, cool. That's all I have to ask. Anything else, Ray? Or you said
I
all you
think
want
I'm
to say?
I think I'm good. Oh, well, so maybe maybe Ruth will want to cut this because we're not ready for it. But I keep thinking like we should go to these conventions or whatever, and like the thing that all of the people at our booth or whatever have in common is that they're paperback flicks authors. Like I feel like we should just have a paperback flicks spot and just any of you that want to be there. So
That would be
one of
fun.
these days.
If you enjoy going to conventions and having a booth, it's a lot of work and it's crazy expensive, but it is fun and I do kind of miss it. Plus, you get to see all the cosplaying, and I love cosplayers and all the fun different booths. And my problem is that I always wanted to shop when I was at these things. I couldn't just stay in my booth. So, but I was always like, I'm a shopper, so I'm like, I'm gonna want to buy as much as I want to sell, if not more. So I don't know. But yeah, that would be kind of cool. Like to do that, put that together. That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I love those events. I think it's fun to talk to readers, see kind of what makes their eyes light up. I love it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much for coming and talking with us, Becca. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to share with us your journey and all of that. And
Of course.
yeah. Is there a particular website or social media place you want people to go and find you or anything like that?
They can check me out at authorrebeccarode.com, REBECCARODE.com. It's also a store, so if I actually sell my ebooks and paperbacks directly to readers to kind of bypass some of the bigger stores. And my other one is Sasha Hart, SASHAHART.com, which is also a store. I just like distributing things straight to readers and not having anybody blocking me from reaching them. Or
Mhm.
you can visit me on either of those pen names on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I don't really use X anymore, but those three, probably Instagram more than anything, is where you'll find me.
Right. Cool. Well, awesome. It's been really great having you. So real quick before we close out, I want to tell Ray, I'm picking the next book, right? Because you
Yes.
picked Gone with the Wind was our last book. So I think it's time actually for another Harry Potter book
I'm good
because
with that.
we haven't done one this season yet. So book three, we're on book three, right?
Yep,
Prisoner of Azkaban, correct?
correct.
Right? Okay, three, then like there's part of me wants to think that that's the fourth book, even though it's not. Yeah, this I really love the movie, so I'm excited to read the book and see how they did. So yeah, that was awesome. And we can talk about all the controversy going on with the whole
Oh,
Harry Potter TV show because I just love that stuff. Love controversy. I love
That'll be a
numbers.
fun episode.
and you know, it's the thing I do to watch all the things, to watch all the. And so even though that was not on my radar of a thing that I wanted to watch, now I have to. I can't not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Thanks again, Mika, for being here with us. And for Paperback Flicks, I'm Ruth Craddock.
Oh, Ray Davidson.
Yeah. And
Rebecca Rowe, thank you so much for having me.
thanks for coming.